Hi, my name is Wade Wickus, CEO of Supply Chain Secret Sauce. We are the secret sauce to your supply chain, and we help many companies, specifically in e-commerce, to succeed in their supply chains. On this next podcast, you're really going to enjoy this. Check it out, and thank you for watching this channel. Well, hi everyone. Welcome to another podcast. Here we are, Supply Chain, the Secret Sauce. On today's show, we have none other than Richie Breese, who is the co-founder of Omniboom, an integration platform as a service company founded in 2017. He's responsible for technology and product development at Omniboom. The majority of that work is with their integration platform called Omniplexus. Richie has over 20 years of experience working with companies in the channels of retail, e-commerce, healthcare, finance, and government agencies. Welcome to the show, Richie.
Yeah, thanks, Wade. I'm really excited to be here and talk some integration stuff.
Yeah. Integration stuff, man, it's all over the industry. And supply chain biz, if you don't have integration, it's not dialed in. You're spending a lot of money on people, and that's a tough thing, and not being as efficient as you can be in supply chain. So, man, I'm so glad to have you here. And I think, the first thing is we just have to explain, which I love your name, Omniboom, omni-channel boom. But, what is Omniboom and what does it solve?
Yeah, so Omniboom, Chris Passetti and I founded it back in 2017. We had recently created a omni-channel solution. So that's kind of where the Omni and Omniboom came from. And this was for our current company that we were working for. They were kind of full end-to-end service provider for e-commerce. So they wanted to bring the capability of omni-channel to their customers. And with the customers each having unique kind of needs for how they did integrations, who they integrated with, and what that looked like, we had to create a very almost excessively flexible platform to handle those scenarios. And it became to the point where it was a platform. And Chris saw the vision of that, more so than just bringing omni-channel capability to a customer or a retail company quickly. He saw that in general for integrations, reducing the time that it would take to integrate with your partners and your applications from, let's say, weeks to months down to hours. We have this vision of meeting with our customer, talking about their organization, the activities that take place. And by the end of that meeting, have integrations set up for them. At that point, you no longer need to worry about data formats and modes of exchanging data. And so our ideal customer has been one who needs new connectivity. They are, let's say I want to connect with a new ERP. In the e-commerce world, I may want to connect with this warehouse, or I'm going to switch warehouses. We kind of come in there and we expedite that process with what we call these connectors. Connectors are a way for us to think of them like adapters into around an application's APIs, or however they receive and produce data. Then those connectors then establish that flow of data among all the different systems. And that's where we would come and reduce that time. The other thing is we handle something called application sprawl. So there's been kind of a boom in the number of applications that are available to organizations. Some of the big ones, maybe I'd take on a few analytics platforms and maybe some monitoring services, but then you'll also get a lot of, I would say, small, very specific applications doing a specific purpose, and you start accumulating those, and it becomes difficult to manage. You start taking talent or resources in your organization to manage that, rather than work on things internally like strategy or innovating your business. And so we really believe in taking back that time, what we call reclaiming that time, by reducing and eliminating work that the organizations have to do, kind of distributing it so more can be done in the same time period, and also kind of just speeding up processes in general. Where we fit into that retail e-commerce world, typically, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So it sounds like your perfect customer is maybe a new brand on Shopify and trying to connect with a fulfillment center, or, they're engaged in transportation management with their brand and they're trying to get into a TMS. Or is there a perfect customer that really calls out to you, or what do you?
Yeah, so we try and be accommodating to what we call either the unexpected or the casual user. I would say we are in the I would say category of low code, no code, but we are more, I would say, configuration. And it's kind of with the idea that someone who doesn't have a technical background, I would say technical in the sense of integrations, understanding API, understanding data transmission and things like that, or having that kind of experience in general, can open up our platform and within minutes be comfortable and confident in making changes. So we're looking for someone who is more of say a business analyst, but doesn't is someone who knows what activities happen, but they don't really have to know how to get them done in the sense of the technical implementation. So a lot of the engagements we've had with customers has been mostly with not the technical people, even though they sometimes come in place just to kind of do a quick overview of, hey, looks good to us, but it's usually done by even maybe a program or product manager. I've had instances where they were trying to create a new product line and they don't want to burden their current development team, and they say, here's an opportunity to use this product. It looks very simple. I can get something done quickly and test it out and make some iterations on that process to see how it goes. And at that point, if it goes well, then we start introducing more of the development team. They may make some changes in their organization. And yeah, so our customers, mostly someone who's just, I would say, casual or wanting to do integration activity, but not have that extensive experience or skill.
Gotcha. Okay. So I'm kind of going to say this back a little bit. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with Tableau, but like how Tableau changed how you can easily, anybody can take a field and understand where the data is and pairing in X, Y, and doing that very easily and creating beautiful graphs and things like that. It sounds like your product is very similar, where it's very functional, where somebody with not a whole lot of experience in API or integration can get on board and really see how to connect events so that events can flow through a integration system.
Exactly. We describe everything in terms of events and actions. And we feel if you can understand those two concepts of, event, action, or cause and effect in terms of your organization and what activities you do, you can be pretty successful with our product. It's a generic term, depending upon what context you're in, it has a different meaning, but we kind of see it as any kind of activity occurring either in the physical world or within an application that will then be packaged up into what we will see as a unit of information describing what happened, where it happened, and some details about it. And then the action is attached to that. We kind of link them to what we call a policy. And the policy is just kind of a check, or say like a check on the criteria to say, hey, if this occurred, then I will want to execute these actions. And that action may say, if I went through an event, like an order was created in my OMS or my web store, that's an event. And my action would be, I need to update my warehouse. And my warehouse may be DHL or another system. And at that point, that action will then go through translating the data from what that order management system had into, let's say, a dispatch request. It may have to also pull information from an intermediate data store, another application, to enrich that message going to the warehouse. And also when the warehouse completes that shipment, successfully, or an exception happens, that is another event that occurs in the WMS or the warehouse, that another set of actions can be executed that will update the OMS, and maybe even so much as send out an email to your support team or create a ticket. And that's where we get into that event-driven model, what we use as an alternative to what we say workflows. Event-driven kind of is, I would say, additive in nature. So a workflow may say, when I create this, when an order is created in my OMS, I have an order from, let's say, it's coming from Shopify, just to continue with that example.
Yeah.
My workflow may say, that's a trigger. Now I want to update my warehouse. I want to update my CRM, and maybe I want to send it to an analytics platform, all in one workflow. It may have some kind of decision gateways in there, some branching, merging, or however you want, looking like a typical flow chart. And if you want to make a change to that, you're going to change that one workflow. And typically there's sometimes a slight hesitation depending upon how complicated that workflow can be, over time. In our event-driven model, those three actions of sending it to the warehouse, sending it to your maybe a CRM or your analytics platform are three different sets of actions or policies. So I can remove one without affecting the other two. I can add on a new event. Say, for instance, I'm planning on transitioning to a new warehouse. So I'm also going to send a copy of a new product created, maybe dimensions or things that warehouse needs to know, also to the second warehouse without having to affect the current flow of things. And so that's that additive kind of capability that the platform has.
So like today's integration, I think that's what makes you unique, right? Because typical integrations, there's some dependencies. Like if it stops here, it just stops, right? And what you're saying is, from an event standpoint, it keeps going, even if one issue has a stopgap. It'll send it off to the other ones. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And the engine kind of works on, a workflow may have a dependency on the previous action. And that's where we get into something called event chaining. So I had the event of the order created in Shopify, and I had an action that said, all right, I need to send a dispatch request or a shipment request to my WMS. Another event can occur that says warehouse received or shipment request received that come from the warehouse. And I can then attach an action to that. So you'll get a chaining effect with that flow. So I could have consolidated that into a workflow, but now I have an opportunity to, again, add more, branch out additional activities on that. So maybe I only want to perform an update to a CRM or a notification to, let's say, a Slack channel or Teams channel once I get confirmation that the WMS has received it based off of their systems, raising that event.
Okay, so let's take this to the supply chain. And typically supply chain, you got a transportation management system, you've got an ERP, you're trying to get a PO to go from your ERP to your transportation management system. It goes out to a carrier. All the costs associated are in that transportation management system. The costs have to come back to the ERP. A typical setup for that today, it'd be a couple days, maybe a week to really get that set up and tested, and a typical integration. But with you and Omniboom, how does that look and feel? And I know this is generality, so give it your best shot and kind of how your approach is different.
Sure. I think I mentioned connectors. Connectors are needed to interface with the different systems that we interact with. The ERP, whatever ERP you're using, we would have a connector probably already pre-built. If not, we would create a new one based off of like their API or their interface. Also would need it with the carrier, whoever we were going to send it, and probably multiple ones if you're hitting different carriers, and maybe even also so much with the TMS. So once those connectors are in place, they have what we call events and actions. Calling back to what we mentioned, how we see integrations, the events are just the changes that can occur in that application, and the actions are kind of like operations that can be requested to make a change in that application or platform. So in this scenario, in the ERP, we will look at the life cycle of that PO. Maybe there's a PO created event, but there might still have a PO updated, and maybe a different state that says a PO generated. And as that PO goes through those different changes, those events are brought into the platform through that connector. And a policy will then evaluate, hey, I don't care about it being created. I don't care about it being updated. I care about it a certain status saying, hey, I'm ready for it to be sent out. And so I want to then execute an action where I need to send it to a carrier. And I may also evaluate the the data from that PO to determine which carrier to send it to. And at that point, that's what the policy is handling. Now, when I send that to the carrier, I already know that I need to submit that as, I'm not exactly sure what operation that would be, but hey, PO generated or submit PO, some kind of operation that service needs. It could have different names. It can also have different structures of data that they need. So there's going to be a transformation from that PO that was generated from the ERP to what the carrier needs. Now, as that carrier, accumulates costs, those also are events. As it makes status updates, I would say shipping updates, those are also events, and those are coming back in the platform through that connector. And we get the same kind of procedure of, hey, what is the event? Where did it come from? Let's evaluate some of the criteria. And if so, now we need to make an update back to the ERP. And what does that look like? Is it a update cost or update PO with cost or something like that would then be called on the ERP. I can then also add another event that says maybe if an exception occurred or something that I want to be aware of, I can then create a ticket or alert a email or a messaging platform of the current condition, and I can have someone take action on it. And then again, later on, I can say I want to add on another action to that flow based off of anything that changed in how my business operates from the carrier back to the ERP. And the same thing, it'll just go back and forth with events going into the platform, evaluating how to action it, and then to where it goes.
Awesome. And so how short of a time, I don't know if you've implemented a number of TMSs like this, but a best guess, how long would something like that take for you guys?
Yeah. If the connector is in place, we can pretty much during a meeting. So we usually give us about a day or so. We go through a process of saying, if we're starting fresh, of just saying, hey, let's connect to your ERP and let's connect to your carrier or any of these applications, and let's just bring events in. So events will stay available in the platform. It's not like, hey, it happened and it's gone. You can no longer act on it. We say, bring the events in. And at that point, you can see what the event looks like, see what the data is. And then we would then translate that using, particularly if we're working with JSON data, liquid template mapping, or if it's XML, XSLT translation, things like that. And those are all created into these policies. And then what we will do is we can resubmit that event to say, now that I know what that event looked like or what the data that's coming from the ERP and that purchase order kind of update, I can then execute this policy and see its result in my carrier or the communication there. When we feel confident, it's about a day
Wow, that's great.
But if the
Awesome.
connectors, assuming the connectors are there, if the connectors don't exist, it takes us probably about 2 weeks to create a new connector that covers both, like, inspecting their API, creating
Right.
the connector, getting it deployed, tested, and kind of like validated as working properly. But it's a very simple process for us. Every one of those connectors are microservices in our platform. Everything's event driven and asynchronous. So doesn't have, I would say, dependencies of a synchronous flow. And that allows us to scale, creating more workers, to handle peaks in activity and scale back down.
That's awesome. So that's pretty quick. That's pretty fast.
Mhm.
Richie, I want to ask you this question. I know you probably,
Mhm.
it's driving, AI is driving everything.
Mhm.
And I just wonder how AI is going to work with integration and programming, and what you kind of see coming down the road from that.
Yeah. So this is definitely a Chris. He is so enthusiastic about AI, and every opportunity he has, like, hey, can we use AI with our platform? And we always kind of see the opportunity. Now we kind of feel our platform is suited well for it just because of things being very small of event and action. But I know, even when I would say ChatGPT kind of came out, or I would say became more common in the news recently, one of our former employees said, hey, can you guys use ChatGPT to create this translation from, let's say in this scenario with the ERP, from your ERP's PO to what your carrier needs, and create this map for you very quickly. And that would be great because that is a time consuming event that we do, an action. I was like, yes, that is something that you can use AI for. The other thing would be suggestions. So I see that in also a lot of other platforms, suggesting how to connect or who to connect with in your integration, maybe suggesting optimizations. Let's try a different way of arranging your actions or these events, and maybe deconstructing what you have out there and reassembling, kind of what they do with other, I would say, generative AI processes. And those are kind of like, I would say, the accessible ones right now. Down the road, we have some ideas of saying, hey, it can almost get to the point of almost handling integrations, and maybe even so far as managing. Obviously, it takes some more effort in that, but think of like handling an integration in the sense of, maybe I already have just my integration participants in place, and I'm just going to say, I'm going to send an order to this AI engine. And at that point, I leave it up to that engine to say, hey, you're going to send it to the warehouse. I'm going to make a translation. I don't have to create those artifacts ahead of time. It's just going to inspect their API and perform that call. Kind of in the same way when an event, so you're kind of just feeding it data and letting it respond, kind of like reactive AI. And then probably even further down, kind of the difference between getting in your car, let's say if you had a self-driving car and say, take me to the airport, and it takes you to the airport, versus getting into your car and it just decides to take you to the airport or the bus station. We get to the point of, it's going to manage your integration. It's going to establish, credentials, connectivity with these applications or these platforms. It's going to pull data out. It's a bit, I would say, concerning, because you have to see what's going on, but you're putting a lot more trust into the engine there and whatnot. But yeah, I don't know how soon that would be and how comfortable.
That's neat.
Yeah. And in general, I think there's going to be some very fast adopters or like first and early adopters into AI concepts, and they get successful, and everyone's going to jump on that. And there's going to be those moments where it's like, hey, we need to pause and back up. Something occurred that people aren't comfortable with, handing off to AI. And so we're going to have a quick callback. We've seen that in many different technologies as well. And then it's like, all right, we're back to being comfortable. Let's go further. So you're going to get these like 2-3 steps forward, 1 step backward kind of progression with AI. But I can definitely see it's becoming more involved as the capabilities are advanced.
Yeah, I mean, you can see it coming into business quite fast in terms of content. And, I'm sure in the programming world, writing code is pretty easy with AI if it's simple code. But to your point, it's amazing how, this could add it to integration down the road at some point in the future. Wow. Yeah. Well, it's exciting to talk with you, Richie, and what you've got cooking. Really great stuff. And I'm going to put your information in the podcast so people can get a hold of you if they need to and understand more if they'd like to. I really appreciate your time, Richie. Thank you.
No, thank you, Wade. It's been a great experience. It's a pleasure to be on your show. And yeah, it's always fun to get someone's kind of view on what we do.
Awesome. Omniboom, ladies and gentlemen, check it out. Thank you again. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for watching this video. We'll have more videos coming down the road. This is an exciting adventure for us. My name is Wade Wickus. I'm CEO of the Supply Chain Secret Sauce. We specialize in e-commerce and building bulletproof supply chains to scale. We're helping companies every day, and we do this through your support. And please pass this on, link this to other things, and hope you found the content very valuable. Have a great day, and thank you.